Simon & Schuster presents Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Read by Cecily Bednar-Schmidt and Chase Brown. For every girl who has ever felt powerless. Chapter 1. Payton. Thick, hot liquid runs down my arm. Blood. Funny, I don't remember the guard nicking me with his sword before my fist connected with his face. Despite being a flash, he apparently couldn't manage to move faster than my right hook to his jaw. The smell of soot stings my nose, forcing me to clamp a grimy hand over it to stop a sneeze from slipping out. That would be a very pathetic way to get caught. When I'm sure that my nose won't alert the Imperials lurking beneath where I'm hiding, I return my hand to the filthy wall my back is currently pressed against, with my feet planted opposite me. After taking a deep breath that nearly has me choking on soot, I slowly begin my climb upwards once again. With thighs burning almost as much as my nose, I force my body to continue shimmying while stifling the sneeze. Climbing up a chimney isn't exactly how I thought I would be spending my evening. The small space has me sweating, swallowing my fear before scrambling to the top of the cramped corridor, eager to replace grime-caked walls with a starry night. When my head finally peeks over the top, I greedily gulp down the sticky air, then climb up and over, immediately bombarded with a new concoction of smells far more unpleasant than the stench of soot clinging to my body, my clothes, my hair. Sweat, fish, spices, and I'm quite certain some sort of bodily fluid, blends to create the aroma that surrounds Loot Alley. Balancing atop the chimney, I strain my eyes on the shadowed roof to inspect my sticky arm. I'd nearly forgotten to examine it, without the usual biting pain that accompanies a sword slash to remind me. I rip off a strip of cloth from the sweaty tank that clings to my body, dabbing at the gash with it. Adina's going to kill me for ruining her stitching. Again. I'm surprised when I don't feel the familiar twinge of pain as I rub at my arm with the rough fabric, impatiently sopping up the stickiness. And that's when I smell it. Honey. The same honey that belongs to the sticky buns oozing out of the many pockets in my ragged vest and dripping down my arm, mistaken for blood. I sigh, rolling my eyes at myself. It's a welcome surprise, nonetheless. Even honey soaking my clothes beats trying to wash blood out. I take in a deep breath and look out over the crumbling, run-down buildings, cast in shadows by the flickering lampposts dotting the street. There's not much electricity here in the slums, but the king generously spared us a few lampposts. Thanks to the Volts and Scholars using their abilities to create a sustained power grid, I have to work exceptionally hard to stay in the shadows. Farther from the slums, the more the rows of shops and homes slowly improve in condition and size. Shacks turn into homes, homes turn into mansions, leading up to the most daunting building of all. Squinting through the darkness, I can just barely make out the looming towers of the royal castle and the sloping dome of the bowl arena that resides beside it. My eyes flick back to the wide street stretched out before me, scanning the surrounding sketchy buildings. Loot Alley is the very heart of the slums, pumping crime and trade throughout the city. I trace the dozens of other alleys and streets jutting off from it, getting lost in the maze that is the city, before offering a sigh and small smile to the familiar street beneath me. Home. Sort of. Technically, a home implies that one has a roof over their head. But stars are far more fun to stare at than the ceiling. I would know, seeing that I used to have a ceiling to stare at every night, back when I had no need for the stars to keep me company. My traitorous gaze sweeps across the city to where I know my former home lies, wedged between Merchant and Elm Streets, where a happy little family is likely sitting around the dinner table, laughing and discussing their day with one another. I hear a thump, followed by the murmuring of voices that drag me from my bitter thoughts. Straining to hear, I can just make out the muffled, deep voice that belongs to the guard I so kindly relieved of his duties a short while ago. Came up right behind me, quiet as a mouse, and then the next thing I know, I get a tap on the shoulder and a fist to the face. A very irritated and very shrill female voice echoes up the chimney. "You're a Flash, for plague's sake! Aren't you supposed to be fast or something?" She takes a deep breath. "Did you at least get a good look at his face before you let him rob me? Again?"
"All I saw were his eyes," the guard mumbles. "Blue. Very blue."
The woman huffs in irritation.
"How helpful. Let me just stop every person on loot to see if their eyes match your vivid description of very blue."
I stifle my snort as something creaks from the other end of the room, followed by a chorus of muffled footsteps. From the groan of rotting wood shifting beneath several new pairs of boots, I immediately deduce that 3 more guards have joined the hunt. And that's my cue. I hop off the chimney and grab onto the raised ledge of the roof, swinging my legs over the side to dangle above the street. Blowing out a breath, I let go and bite my tongue against a yelp as gravity yanks me towards the ground. With a soft thud, I drop ungracefully into a merchant's wagon brimming with hay. The stiff straw pokes through my clothes like one of Adina's pincushions, and a cloud of soot and hay rises on the night breeze when I jump out onto the street. Passing the time by plucking straw from my tangled hair, I begin my journey back to the fort, weaving through beat-up merchant carts, all abandoned for the night, feet dancing over trash and broken trinkets. Looters slumped against alleys or tucked in between buildings whisper among themselves as I pass. I feel the weight of the dagger tucked into my boot and relax at the comfort of the cool steel as I pass groups of fellow homeless huddling together for the night. I can see the faint shimmer of purple force fields shielding some, while others don't even have an ability strong enough to allow them to sleep peacefully, which is the exact reason they call the slums their home. I keep my steps swift and sure as my eyes sweep back and forth across the alleys, never letting my guard down. The poor don't discriminate. A shilling is a shilling, and they don't care if they jump someone worse off than them to get it. Several guards cross my path as I zigzag down streets, forcing me to slow down to steer clear of them. Every shop, corner, and street has been bestowed the gift of leering, white-uniformed law enforcers. These brutal Imperials have been stationed everywhere along Loot Alley by decree of the king due to an increase in crime. Clearly has nothing to do with me. I slip down a smaller alley, making my way towards the dead end. There, tucked in the corner, is a mangled barricade of broken merchant carts, cardboard, old sheets, and plague knows what else. Before I'm even halfway to the pile of garbage we call home, a face obscured by wild, shoulder-length curls pops up over the fort.
"Did you get it?"
Untangling her long legs from where she sits, she effortlessly stands and phases right through the 3-foot wall of our trash barricade without a second thought. And then she's bounding towards me with so much hope in her eyes that you'd think I've offered her a real roof over her head and a warm meal. And though I can give her neither of those things, I do have something far better in her opinion. I sigh. "I'm offended you doubted me, Adina. I thought you'd have a little more faith in my abilities after all these years." I sling my pack from my back and pull out the crumpled red silk from within, unable to suppress my smile as a look of awe settles on her face. She greedily claws the silk from my hands, running her fingers through the soft folds of the fabric. Peeking up through the curly bangs hanging in her hazel eyes, she looks at me as though I've just single-handedly eradicated the plague, rather than steal fabric from a woman not much better off than we are. Like I'm the hero and not the villain. Adina's smile could rival the sun over the scorches desert.
"Hey, you and your sticky fingers work magic, you know that?"
She throws her arms around my neck, pulling me into a crushing embrace that causes more honey to ooze down my vest and pool in my pockets. Speaking of sticky fingers, I peel myself from her hug to fish around in my pockets. I retrieve 6 smashed sticky buns, only slightly unappetizing with the hay now decorating them. Adina's eyes go wide at the sight before snatching one from my hand just as greedily as she did the fabric. She turns mid-bite and strides right back through our fort without a second thought, plopping herself down on the colorless, rough rugs that lie on the inside of the barricade. She pats the spot beside her expectantly, and, unlike her, I ungracefully leap over the wall before I can take a seat. I bet Maria wasn't too happy about her shop being looted. Again. Poor thing should really up her security, Adina says between bites, a crooked smile joining the crumbs on her face. Despite my robbing the woman at least once a month for the past several years, she's only managed to conclude that I am a he. At least she's trying. Actually, I say with a shrug, she had 2 more Imperials stationed around her shop than normal. She must be getting tired of all the stolen sticky buns over the years. Adina narrows her hazel eyes at the sight of my smile. Thank the plague you didn't get caught, Pay. As soon as the familiar phrase slips past her lips, my jaw sets instinctively, while hers falls open mid-bite. She visibly cringes, her brow crinkling and throat clearing. Sorry. Bad habit. My fingers drift to the thick ring on my thumb, spinning it mindlessly while I muster a weak smile. This topic is one we typically try to avoid, though it's my fault the subject became suddenly awkward to speak of in the first place. All due to a moment of weakness that I wish I wasn't so relieved about. You know, it's not the words that bother me, it's the meaning behind them. She cuts in with a smile and a shockingly accurate imitation of my voice. I nearly choke on my laugh and a piece of sweet dough. Are you quoting me, eh? By way of answering, she takes a bite of sticky bun before declaring between mouthfuls, and it's not the plague that makes you sick. It's what came after. I nod slowly, while absent-mindedly tracing the rug's worn pattern beneath us, the feeling familiar beneath my finger. The idea of thanking the plague that killed thousands of Ilians makes me lose my appetite for even sticky buns. Thanking the thing that caused so much pain and death and discrimination. But all anyone cares about now is who the plague didn't kill. The kingdom was isolated for years to keep the sickness from spreading to the surrounding cities, and only the strongest in Ilia survived the disease that altered the very structure of humans. The fast became exceptionally faster, the strong became unbeatable, and those who lurked in the shadows could become the shadows. Dozens of supernatural abilities were bestowed upon Ilians alone, all varying in strength, purpose, and power. Gifts given as a reward for surviving. They are elite. They are extraordinary. They are exceptional. Adina trails off, poking at her sticky bun while struggling to form words for once. Just be careful, Pei. If you get caught and aren't able to talk yourself out of it, I'll be fine, I state far too casually, ignoring the worry that washes over me. This is what I do, what I've always done. She sighs through her smile, waving a dismissive hand. I know. You can handle yourself with the elites. I feel that rush of relief once again, making me feel both guilty and grateful that she truly knows me. Because not all those who survived the plague were fortunate enough to be gifted with abilities. No, the ordinaries were just that. Ordinary. And over the next several decades following the plague, the ordinaries and elites lived in peace. Until King Edric decreed that ordinaries were no longer fit to live in his kingdom. It was over 3 decades ago when sickness swept through the land. Due to the outbreak of what was likely a common illness, the king's healers used the opportunity to claim that ordinaries were carrying an undetectable disease, saying it was likely the reason they hadn't developed abilities. Extended exposure to them became harmful to both elites and their powers, and over time, the ordinaries were dwindling the abilities elites are so protective of. I fight the urge to roll my eyes at the thought. My father believed that was bullshit, and I think no differently. But even if I had proof of the king lying through his teeth, it's not as though a girl from the slums is in any position to be believed. But the king couldn't allow his elite society to be weakened, or worse, by mere ordinaries. Extinction was not an option for the extraordinary. And so began the purging. Even now, decades later, tales of the bodies that scattered the sand under the scolding sun are casually passed around campfires, scary stories whispered among children. Sticky fingers close over mine, the honey coating Adina's hands as sweet as the spreading smile she shares with me. My secret is stowed in the glint of her eyes, in the loyalty lining her expression. I've spent so much of my life resigned to the fact that nothing would ever be real. Every friendship false, every kindness calculated.
Hide your feelings, hide your fear, and most importantly, hide behind your facade. No one can know, Patty. Trust no one and nothing but your instincts.
My father's gentle voice is oddly jarring as it echoes in my head, reminding me that every part of my life should be a lie, and the girl sitting before me should be as deceived as the rest of the kingdom. Selfishness only stole my sanity for a single night, but that was all it took for me to endanger the both of us.
All right, enough talk of the plague,
Adina says cheerily, scanning the alley before adding,
and your situation.
I don't bother stifling my snort. It seems that 2 years haven't been enough time for you to practice subtlety, eh? I doubt she even heard me. Doubt she can focus on anything other than the fabric now gliding between her fingers. With hazel eyes scanning over sewing supplies, Adina abandons our previous conversation to ramble about what pieces she'll be making with the new silk. Her warm brown hands dig through scraps of fabric in the flickering lamplight, beginning to fold edges, pin corners, prick fingers, curse relentlessly. We fall into the type of easy conversation that only comes after spending years surviving on the streets together, making it easy to interpret Adina's garbled words around the pins pressed between her lips. I roll over, finally falling quiet, as I watch her steady fingers and furrowed brow, too engrossed with her work to sleep. A stabbing pain in my side has my drooping eyes flying open, drowsiness forgotten. The jagged stone jutting up from the alley floor has me groggily grumbling. Mark my words, I'm going to steal a cot one day. Adina rolls her eyes at me, just as she does every night I make the same empty promise.
I'll believe it when I feel it, Pay,
she sing-songs. I've rolled over about a dozen times before a scratchy, balled-up blanket collides with my head.
If you don't quit your squirming, I swear I'll sew you to the bloody ground,
Adina says with all the sweetness of a sticky bun. I'll believe it when I feel it, eh?
Chapter 2. Kai. A ball of fire skims past my face, nearly singeing my hair off. I barely have the time to duck when I feel a second wave of heat rippling towards me. Plagues. Kit's in a lovely mood today. Dancing on the balls of my feet, I watch as another sphere of fire comes hurtling in my direction as the familiar feel of adrenaline floods through me. I throw up a shield of water, hearing the fire hiss before it melts into nothing more than a thick cloud of steam. Kit squints, attempting to see me through the smoke before his eyes widen when I suddenly collide with him. We tumble to the ground as I pin him down, raising a flaming fist aimed at his face. Yield? I can't keep the smile from twitching my lips. He coughs out a laugh, his gaze flicking between my face and the blazing fist raised beside it. If I say no, are you really going to punch me, little brother? Despite the fire burning mere inches from him, Kit's green eyes glint with amusement. I think you would know the answer to that by now. I smile slightly as I cock my fist back farther, posing to strike. All right, I yield, Kit sputters, but only because I wouldn't want poor Eli to have to set another one of our broken noses. I chuckled darkly at the thought of seeing the look on the royal physician's face if we were to stumble in with yet another broken bone. After standing to my feet, I offer a hand to Kit, who's still sprawled on the ground. The smile he gives me doesn't quite reach his eyes when he finally says, Plagues, Kai. You're better with my powers than I am. And that is why you will be ruling the country, I say simply, while I'll be fighting on the battlefield, distracting the enemy with my dashing good looks. Are you saying I couldn't distract the enemy with my own dashing good looks? Kit asks through his deep laughter, feigning offense. I'm saying that we are only half-brothers, so I'm afraid that means you only have half of my charms. Kit barks out another laugh. By that logic, I suppose you only have half my brains then. Thank the plague for that. The words are barely out of my mouth before he's shoving me with a grin. We walk the worn path between the dirt training circles that reside on the castle grounds. Imperials in training and other elites of higher status continue their sparring as we pass, most using abilities while few use weapons. Heads turn towards us, their eyes burning my skin, mirroring the sun beating down on us from above. Ignoring the stares, I breathe in the training ground's familiar scent of literal blood, sweat, and tears before grabbing a sword from a weapons rack and tossing one to Kit, whose expression can only be described as exasperated. You know, I've always enjoyed fighting with weapons more than abilities, I say in answer to his pointed look as I mindlessly test the balance of my blade. Kit saunters farther into the muddy ring, all but rolling his eyes. Yes, I'm well aware of how much you love to beat down on me with a sword. I rotate my wrist, swinging my blade as we begin circling each other. It does happen to be one of my favorite hobbies, yes. I advance suddenly, swinging my sword down hard against his and sending a jolt up my arm. See? Isn't this fun? Kit grits his teeth against my strike. Riveting. I fall into a familiar trance, letting my feet dance around the ring as we spar, getting lost in the rhythm. My mind clears, my body hums with energy. I've always felt most alive when I fight. It's what I was made to do, what has kept me sane over the years of training and tutoring. A dim-witted king is a dead king. Father's words ring through my mind, having been drilled through my skull after every complaint about my tedious lessons as a boy. Though, I won't have to worry about being a dead or dim-witted king, seeing that I won't be a king at all. And after arguing just that to Father, he kindly created a new saying for me to live by. A dim-witted enforcer is a defeated empire. Encouraging. A sharp pain sears at my forearm, dragging me from my thoughts with a jolt. Better get your head in the game, Kai, or I might actually beat you. Kit has a look of triumph on his face that I intend to wipe off. I wouldn't want my future enforcer slacking on the job. Before he can even finish his remark, I'm pushing his sword to the ground and pinning it under my own before swiveling behind him. In one swift motion, I kick my boot up, sliding a dagger from it to settle the sharp tip against his back. I'm sorry. What was that, Your Majesty? I release my hold on him, and he turns as I sweep into a mocking bow while tucking the dagger back into my boot. That earns me a solid shove that nearly has me staggering, one I return in kind while Kit chuckles. His dirty blonde hair is far more dirty than blonde at the moment, splattered with chunks of mud from rolling around in the ring. Our shirts have long been abandoned in the summer heat, and, like me, sweat slicks his tan chest. It's almost comical how obvious it is that we're only half-brothers. Other than our physical differences, I lack Kit's caring like he lacks my callousness. He's patient, personable, and fit for the throne like I'm fit for the battlefield. A king, where I am a killer. Kai, are you even listening to me? Kit looks equally concerned and amused as he snaps his fingers in front of my face. Plagues. How much blood did you lose? I follow his gaze to see rivulets of red trailing from the wound on my arm, blood weaving between my knuckles and dripping from my fingertips. Well, looks like Eli won't be getting the day off after all. Thanks to you. I glance up at Kit, expecting a remark, only to find his gaze fixed on something across the grounds. Now look who's not paying attention. My eyes stray to the figure strutting towards us, training leathers clinging to her every curve and lilac hair whipping in the wind. Oh look, bitchy Blair, I breathe under my breath before she reaches us, causing Kit to choke on a laugh. Hello, boys. Her voice is like ice, cold and smooth. How's the training coming? Her gaze sweeps lazily over the both of us before returning to our faces with a slight smirk twisting her lips. Getting ready for the trials, Kai? Not that I need to prepare. A slow smile creeps onto her face at that. I would think the future enforcer would want to make a good impression on the kingdom by winning. She's suddenly very interested in her nails, feigning nonchalance. I run a hand through my hair with a bored sigh. And I plan on doing just that. She gives me a smile that's anything but sweet. I would hope so, seeing that you're the best elite in decades. Or so they say. Plagues, here we go. Kit takes a step forward and puts a hand to his chest like he's been wounded. Ouch, Blair. I'll remember that comment when I'm king. Oh, did I wound your pride, Kit? She offers him a fake pout before turning her attention back on me. Besides, I personally think I'll be winning the trials. I huff out a humorless laugh before peering down at her small form. And what makes you so sure you'll even be competing? I say this knowing full well that she will, in fact, be in the trials. With a flick of her wrist, a dagger flies from the weapons rack in response to my comment. Before I can blink, it's suddenly suspended in the air and digging into my jugular. As the daughter of the general? She steps towards me until there are mere inches between us and whispers, I think I have a pretty good shot of getting into the games. Don't you? She giggles even while pressing the floating knife to my throat, further proving her point. The buzz of dozens of powers pounds through my blood, all belonging to the other individuals training in the courtyard. I force the other abilities to fall silent, focusing on Blair's power and the feel of it humming beneath my skin, urging me to grab hold of it. She's a powerful telly, and her demonstration with this dagger is the least of what she can do with her mind. I reach out to that tingling feeling that is her ability and let it wash over me, claw to the surface. And then I become it. Just as I did with Kit's jewel power of fire and water, and just as I can do with any one of the abilities surrounding me. My smile is cold as I flip the floating dagger in midair, pushing it against the tough leather covering her heart with nothing but my mind. Well, then you better get training, I say quietly before loosening my hold on her ability, letting the dagger fall to the ground with a thud. I don't bother saying anything more before I turn and stride towards the castle. Kit falls silently into step beside me, seemingly just as lost in thought as I am as we make our way back through the castle gates. With the trials only 2 weeks away, it seems I'm no longer able to blissfully ignore their existence and my role within them. The smell of roasting chicken and potatoes wafting from the kitchens is enough to steal my attention. I shoot a glance at the abnormally quiet Kit before turning to stride through the kitchen doors. Afternoon, ladies? I flash a quick smile at the cooks and servants milling around the kitchen as they prepare dinner. Miss me? I croon, lifting myself up onto a hard counter and leaning back on my palms. I catch the eyes of a few servant girls before they redden and turn back to their work, exchanging giggled whispers with one another. The heat of the kitchen hits me like a wave, washing over me and coating my already slick skin. My skin. I run a hand through my hair before running it down my face, unbothered by the realization that I've been walking around without a shirt after abandoning it in the filthy ring, a habit even Father hasn't been able to break. Kit's head pops around the corner, a grin splitting his face. I thought I smelled my favorite dish. You're such a sweetheart, Gail. He strides over to the cook stirring a pot full of creamy potatoes over the sweltering stove, her dark skin glistening with sweat. She can't help but smile at the look lighting Kit's face.
Oh, don't think I did this for you, Kitty. Mashed potatoes happen to be my favorite as well.
She smiles, patting him on the cheek before turning to continue her stirring. Her eyes meet mine from where I sit atop the counter before darting to my arm and the wound I'd forgotten was still bleeding there. With a shake of her head, she says sternly,
Well, you better not get blood on my counter, Kai.
I crack a smile at that. This wouldn't be the first time. She shakes her head at me again, fighting a smile all the while. Gail's been slipping us extra food and treats since we were boys, running around the castle with half our clothes on, which we clearly still do. She's witnessed far more than one fight unfold in this very kitchen over who gets the last of her sticky buns.
You two haven't visited me in a while,
She says, adding seasoning to her potatoes.
Getting sick of me? Hmm?
You, yes, but never your food. The words have barely left my mouth before a glob of potatoes comes flying at my face. I don't have the time or energy to duck before the mash joins the matted mud and dirt. Never a dull moment with us, is there? Kit muses from where he's leaning against a ledge, watching as I pull at the potatoes clinging to my hair. I hop off the counter and stride over to the cook, giving her a peck on the cheek. Always a pleasure, Gail. I reach around her to grab an apple from its basket as I say, I look forward to our next food fight. After tossing one to Kit, I rub my own apple on my pants before taking a bite.
Prince Kai?
I stiffen, sigh, and turn towards the voice behind me. A young boy looks up nervously, his hands fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. I raise my eyebrows, my impatience evident.
The king requests your presence in the throne room.
Chapter 3. Payden. The wheel of a merchant's cart rolls over my toes. I bite back a yelp, but don't bother biting back my rather rude retort directed at the oblivious man who's mindlessly crippling people with his cart. Well, today's off to a great start. I slept fitfully last night, tossing and turning as I faded in and out of my recurring nightmares. Flashes of my father dying, while I can do nothing but hold his hand. Climbing up a chimney only to find the top boarded up, and Adina, the only person I have left in this world, being dragged away from me screaming. Sometime between my numerous nightmares, Adina made a feeble attempt to shake me awake. I rolled over, groaning, trying to cling to the little bit of blissful sleep I managed to steal. I may be the thief, but I'm regularly robbed of rest. Persistent per usual, Adina then switched her strategy, deciding to pelt me with rough scraps of fabric until I finally raised a white cloth in surrender. The sun, lazy as ever, is slowly struggling to peek over the rundown buildings, casting Loot Alley in morning shadows while I make my way down the cobblestone path. As the street comes alive with the hustle and bustle of merchants haggling while beggars plead with anyone who spares them a glance, I easily blend into the chaos that surrounds the slums. My hands itch to snatch some food to quiet my grumbling stomach and to bring back for Adina. My eyes flick across the street in search of my next unfortunate victim to rob when... something's not right. 14. There are only 14 Imperials lining the street. But there should be at least 16 today. I would know, seeing that I've memorized their rotations. I spot Egghead and Hooknose in their usual spots outside of Maria's shop, along with several other Imperials with equally accurate names. With the white leather masks obscuring half their faces from view, it's rather difficult to come up with creative nicknames for the bastards, so I pride myself on the few I've invented. Normally, the prospect of fewer guards would be a relief, and perhaps it's my psychic abilities kicking in, but the sight worries me. My stomach growls angrily, impatient as ever. Food first, funny feeling second. I zigzag through the crowd with ease, swiping apples from the cart that ran over my toes, the revenge as sweet as the crisp fruit I bite into. Leaning against the crumbling wall of a shop, I spot what looks to be a young apprentice haggling with a tradesman. I watch as he fixes the merchant with a glare before throwing down several coins and snatching up a bundle of what can only be black leather. My eyes skim over the shillings as they roll on top of the cart, counting them quickly to find far too many coins there for leather. He's in a hurry. That's why he's willing to pay double what he should, rather than take the time to negotiate a cheaper price. And he has the money to spare. The perfect target. I step onto the street and head for the boy, now quickly shoving through the crowd, while I pull at the leather strap holding my hair out of my face and off my neck. It falls down my back in a cascade of messy silver waves, while I curse the sweltering heat that already has my neck sticky with sweat. Letting a curtain of hair fall over my shoulder and into my face, I morph myself into the perfect picture of innocence.
Make them underestimate you. Make them overlook you until you want to be seen.
It's been so long since I've heard my father's voice that the soft sound of it threatens to slip from my memory and drift into death with him. The thought shatters when we collide. I stumble, scrambling to grab hold of the unsuspecting apprentice as I let myself fall. Gathering a fistful of his shirt in one hand, I slip the other into his vest pocket where I saw him grab his coins. I can feel 6 shillings there and resist the urge to grab all of them before only palming 3. Greed is not an easily tamed emotion, but I force myself to leave the other coins, knowing that he's likely smart enough to feel the lack of weight in his pocket if I take them all. And I don't need to add any more scars to my back for getting caught. But right as I'm about to pull out my hand and ramble an apology for nearly running the boy over, my fingers catch on the inside lining of his vest. No, not just the lining. A secret pocket. I feel a folded piece of parchment within, and on an impulse I can't explain or justify, decide to palm that too, before sliding my hand out and shyly looking up into the apprentice's face. His brown eyes are wide as I stare up at him through the strands of hair blowing across my face. I arrange my expression into that of utter embarrassment and quickly uncurl my fist from his shirt. Blowing a strand of hair from my eyes, I take a step back to put some space between us. I am so sorry, sir. I force myself to sound breathless, embarrassed, harmless. I'm quite certain I am the only person in all of Ilia who is capable of tripping on air.
Go on.
Underestimate me. Overlook me. He runs a hand through his curly hair and chuckles. No worries. Guess you have quite the talent then. He wears a smile, but his gaze lingers a little too long for my liking. So I offer him a grin and a nod of my head before turning on my heel and vanishing into the crowded street. The sugary scent of sticky buns wafts down the busy alley as I stroll past Maria's shop and sidestep into one of the many small alleys branching off Loot. The note I nicked grows damp with sweat as I grip it in my palm. What could possibly be written on this little piece of paper that warrants it to be so hidden? I intend to find out. Flattening my back against the grimy brick wall, I unfold the edges of the paper to reveal a scribbled note. Meeting begins midnight. White House between Merchant and Elm. Bring the supplies. I stare at the note, blinking in confusion while my heart races in anticipation. That's my house. Well, that was my house. I can tell by the slant of the letters and the smudging of the ink that whoever wrote this was likely in a hurry to hide the note from prying eyes. Prying eyes like mine. Dozens of questions flood my mind, each one more confusing than the last. Why on this plague-forsaken earth are meetings being held at my house? Former house. You left it, remember? And to meet there in the middle of the night with supplies? The leather. I trip over the uneven cobblestone, ripping me back to reality and the realization that I've been pacing this whole time. I shove the crumpled note back into my vest, mind still reeling as I step out onto the busy street now bathed in sunlight. I shake my head, trying to clear it, as I push through the throng of people bartering, gossiping, and cursing. Beginning to wind through the merchant carts once again, I fall into the familiar rhythm that is my honest occupation. Thieving. My mind wanders as I work, leaving me to wonder whether Adina is having any luck selling her clothes on the other end of the long street. I steal, she sews. And that's been our lives for the past 5 years. I was barely 13 and utterly alone in the world when Adina quite literally ran into me. Well, she phased right through me. I'll never forget the look on the Imperial's face as he sprinted after her, screaming about stolen pastries. And without a second thought, I didn't hesitate before sticking my foot out into his path. As soon as I got a glimpse of the guard's face meeting the pavement, I was chasing after the gangly, curly-haired girl who ran right through me. An uneasy alliance was born that day. one that was supposed to stay that way. My hand freezes mid-air, hovering over a plump grapefruit, when a chilling scream cuts through the mayhem of loot. I twist around, fruit forgotten, searching through the throng of bodies to find the source of the noise. My eyes scan the crowd before snagging on a small, slumped figure crumpled against a wooden pole stained red at the center of the street. An Imperial hovers over the small boy, whip in hand, looking disgustingly pleased with himself as he stares down at the child. I know that look all too well. I've been that bleeding child far too many times. He got caught. I wonder what it was he stole, what it was that could possibly justify such a beating. Some fruit? Maybe a few shillings from a merchant? I remember slumping up against the wooden pole, shaking with the pain caused by each crack of the whip, while I bit my tongue to keep from crying out. The pain fades, but the scars remain as a reminder to do better. The young ones always get caught. They're needy. They haven't learned to control their greed or live with their hunger yet, making them easy targets for the Imperials to use as an example. There's nothing you can do for him. I have to beat those words into my head to ensure my feet don't find their way to the boy. Because I tried once. Tried to step in and help a little girl who reminded me of myself. So scared and yet so determined to never show it. When she looked up at me, the fire in her gaze reflected my own. In the end, my attempt to help only ended with extra lashings for the both of us. I grimace and quickly turn away from the gruesome scene, only to get a mouthful of starchy, crumpled uniform when I slam into the lowlife wearing it. The Imperial stares down at me, amusement flickering in his eyes surrounded by that white mask. Though he looks to be at least 10 years my senior, blonde hair sticking up at odd angles, he takes his time lazily trailing his gaze over my body. I bite my tongue before I can say something he'll likely make me regret. Imperials aren't known to be gentlemen when it comes to young girls, or to anyone for that matter, and I don't intend to find out if he is the exception. So sorry, sir. I seem to be madly clumsy today, I say, planning my escape into the crowd. A clammy hand wraps around my wrist and spins me back around. I summon every bit of strength I have to suppress the fighting instinct that screams at me to knee him in the groin and bash his head into the stones beneath our feet.
Why in such a hurry?
His toothy grin and black eyes send a shiver down my spine, and the foul stench of alcohol on his breath only adds to my unease. I smile and force myself to be polite as I shake out of his grasp. Just trying to run some errands before the market gets too crowded, that's all. He grunts, eyeing me skeptically.
Say, what's your power, girl?
I fight the urge to stiffen as he continues with a grin.
By decree of the king, I'm to question anyone I feel should be questioned.
He loves being in control, having power. I'm a mundane, I say simply, stating my tier on the elite's food chain to prove that I am of little threat and importance to him. A psychic. I look him right in his black eyes as I say it, willing his black heart to believe me.
Is that right? I've never met a psychic before.
He chuckles darkly and takes a step towards me, bending his head close to mine so I get another whiff of the alcohol clinging to him.
Prove it, then.
I'm growing quite tired of that demand. I meet the Imperial's eyes, refusing to give him the satisfaction of thinking I'm concerned, though my pounding pulse proves otherwise. I'm sensing anger and regret from you. You've just split up with your wife. Well, actually, she left you. The look of utter shock on his face brings a small smile to my lips. And if you really want me to be specific, because, well, you told me to prove it, it's because you... I stop mid-sentence, squeezing my eyes shut while pressing fingers to my temple, putting on a convincing show. You cheated on her? Wait, I'm getting something else. I peek up at his face, now red with rage, as I continue rubbing my temple. You want her back. But she doesn't want you. I'm prepared for the backhand before I feel the sting of it across my face. Blood flies from my mouth, and I keep my head turned away from him as he growls close to my face. Bloody witch is what you are. Get out of my sight, mundane. I spin on my heel and smile, blood pooling in my mouth and dribbling down my chin. I force myself to stumble back into a cart, snatching some fabric hanging off the edge from behind my back. I turn around quickly, clutching the bundle to my chest as I tear off a corner with my teeth to wipe up my bloody mouth and chin. I'll use part of the fabric as a napkin, and the rest can go to Adina. 2 birds with 1 stone. Shoving the remaining cloth in my pack, now stuffed full of food, coins, and other stolen goods, I head back towards the fort, all while replaying the last 5 minutes over in my head. It wasn't hard to get under the Imperial skin, and I knew once I had, he'd slap me silly and let me scurry away. This wouldn't have been the first time I've let that happen, and proving my psychic abilities was hardly difficult considering that the evidence was written all over him. The thin tan line on his now empty ring finger was my first clue that he was formerly married. Then, there's the fact that he moved his wedding band to his other hand, rather than pawning it off for money, telling me that he still cares for his ex-wife, and is probably still pining over her. The disheveled hair, crumpled uniform, and smell of whiskey on his breath further prove that he is obviously a single man, who no longer has a wife to make him look presentable. Men would likely go extinct without women to coddle them. As for the part where he cheated on his wife, well, that was more so an educated guess, based on the way he looked at me along with the stellar reputation the Imperials have made for themselves. Clearly, the assumption hit a nerve before he hit me. The midday sun beats down on me as I make my way back to the fort to meet Adina for lunch, just like always. I take my time meandering down loot, gnawing on an apple while hunger gnaws at me. The salty smell of fish basking in the sun atop merchant carts hangs in the air. Children scuttle in front of my path, laughing as they chase each other down the street. The sound of voices haggling and cursing is like a chorus to me, a tune I'm all too familiar with. A large colored banner catches my eye as it begins to rise above the crowded alley, strung between 2 shops by a crawler. He scurries up the wall as though there's glue on his palms and feet, allowing him to climb up the smooth shop with ease. As he secures the rope connecting the banner to the wall, I turn my attention to the words scrawled on the green tapestry in large black lettering. The 6th Purging Trials is about to begin. Remember the purging. Thank the plague. Honor your kingdom, your family, and yourself. You could be the next victorious elite. I snort loudly, nearly choking on a chunk of my apple. Although the purging trials are nothing to laugh about, I can't help but find it comical that they are meant to be a celebration. In honor of the Great Purging over 3 decades ago, the trials were created to showcase the people's supernatural abilities and bring honor to the only elite kingdom. I wouldn't say murdering innocent people brings honor to me, my kingdom, or my family. Not that I have any left to bring honor to. And yet, every 5 years, young elites are chosen to compete in these games for both the glory and enough shillings to build your own comfy castle while you try to escape the trauma the trials caused you. But the part that has me shaking with both laughter and rage is that the lesser elites, those with defensive and mundane abilities, are made to believe that they have a chance of winning these twisted trials. I feel suddenly numb as I look at the excited faces surrounding me, all crowding under the sign, grinning and pointing. We are the first to die. The elites who compete aren't chosen, but rather born into their fate. It's always those of royal blood or of higher status on the elite's tier of power. I scan the crowd, eyes skipping over the smiling faces of mundanes who are only thrown into the trials for entertainment after the king allows us to pick who we wish to represent us. Despite the king insisting that the killing of fellow elites in the arena is frowned upon, it's no secret that death itself is a contestant in the trials. Dying teenagers apparently make things exceptionally more entertaining, and if the elites won't do the killing, the king will pull the strings in the arena. I pushed through the throng of people gathered under the sign, all talking over one another about who will represent Loot and what they would do with the prize money. There have been very few times in my life when I haven't envied the elites, but at the thought of competing in the purging trials, I've never been more thankful to be nothing and no one of importance. Completely ordinary. Chapter 4. Payton. Are you gonna eat that? Adina is eyeing the half-eaten orange on my lap, while I sit leaning against the alley wall behind the fort. Have at it. The words have barely slipped past my lips before she leans over, her curly hair blowing in the soft breeze, as she snatches the fruit and pops a slice into her mouth. The Imperial with the impressive backhand left me the lovely gift of a split-bottom lip, making it difficult to choke down food. How'd you do today? I ask while mindlessly spinning the thick silver wedding band on my thumb. The cold steel of my father's ring bites into my skin, comforting me like it always has. I suppose I'd have my mother's too if it weren't buried with her when I was a baby. Illness, Father had said. She was an ordinary, after all, and the lot of us are apparently weaker, diseased humans. But he married her anyway. Loved her despite it, protected her, kept her secret just as he did mine. Adina sighs, and I'm brought back to the present when she says, between bites of orange, Can't complain. Oh, I sold that top I had been working on for ages, for 3 whole shillings, too. You know, the green one with the deep neckline and scalloped hem? I give her the same confused look I always do when she starts speaking in her sewing language. Ugh, you're hopeless when it comes to clothes pay. I glance down at my battered tank beneath the olive green vest atop it. Everything changed the day Adina made me the pocketed vest, knowing that it would serve me well as a thief. That was the day an uneasy alliance began to blossom into an easy friendship. Adina taps a finger against her lips, considering something. I bet if you had on the right outfit, everyone would be too busy staring at you to even notice you're robbing them. I snort. I'd rather not have people staring while I'm committing crimes. That seems a bit counterproductive. I snatch up my dagger and tuck it into my boot, brushing my fingers along the swirling silver handle. It's the only other keepsake I have from Father besides his ring, both of which I never go without. I'm admiring the intricate handle for the 100th time before jolting when I suddenly remember something. Be careful today, A. There are fewer guards out than usual for some reason, and I don't like it. I struggle to find the right words. Just keep an eye out for anything that looks out of the ordinary, okay? She looks slightly unsettled by this news, but the narrowing of her hazel eyes is playful. Is this your psychic juju warning you of potential danger? Yeah, we definitely need to work on your subtlety, I sigh, shaking my head at her with a smile. I stand to leave, groaning as I stretch out my sore body. Adina gathers her clothes, all varying in different sizes and colors, and reluctantly waves goodbye before heading back out onto Loot in the hopes of selling more items before sundown. I step out into the crowded street now bathed in late afternoon sunlight and head towards the buzz of the marketplace. I start off easy. First, nicking some fruit and fabric before growing bored and moving on to bigger and better items. Wallets, watches, and shillings are what I'm really after this evening. I spy a man with dark blue hair and a glittering watch adorning his thick wrist before quickly deciding to make him my next target. Peering down the packed street, I spot a few others with abnormally colored hair dotting the crowd, evidence that a genetic-altering plague comes with more perks than just supernatural abilities. Though, even with the mop of silver hair atop my head, I still wasn't gifted a power to accompany it. It takes me far too long to escape the blue-haired man after stealing his watch. Not because he caught me, no, but because he wouldn't stop talking to me. After stumbling into him and slyly slipping the accessory from his wrist, it was clear the poor man was dying to spew gossip with anyone willing to smile and nod at him. I'm about ready to head in early and call it a decently successful night when a tall figure, completely clad in black, strolls onto Loot. He walks with an air of confidence, so at odds with the hunch that the homeless have adapted in the hopes of drawing as little attention to themselves as possible. But this man is making it difficult to look away. He wears a loose black button-down, tucked into slim black pants and separated by a simple belt. His collared shirt is halfway unbuttoned, billowing open in the breeze to expose part of his tanned chest. His facial features are fuzzy from a distance, but his tar black hair falls over the top of his forehead in messy waves. With his hand buried in his pockets, his long strides carry him deeper into the market, looking cool and collected. He's not from here. I can see it in the way he looks around as if he's taking it all in. It's likely he is an offensive, an elite of higher status or noble blood who rarely sets foot into the slums. I can see in the way he walks, in the shine of his shoes, that this man will be carrying far more than a few measly shillings. I squint, trying to get an idea of where he might have slipped his silvers. There. Swinging against his leg, attached from his belt with a strap, hangs a pouch that many Ilians use to carry change. Specifically, the confident ones, seeing that their unguarded pouch is easy pickings for a thief. Easy pickings for me. My last unlucky target for the night. It's a good thing he's so bleeding tall, or I would have lost him in the swarm of people. I watch women of all ages crane their necks as he passes, trying to get a better view of the handsome stranger before he melts into the mass of people. I shove through the crowd and tail him until he steps out of the main path, between merchant carts, and onto a less crowded street. I shake out my hair, letting the long waves fall limply over my shoulders as I cut down a street, heading to cut him off. The back alley I zigzag through spits me out onto the same one the stranger strolled down, and now I am heading straight for him. I keep my eyes glued to the ground when we collide. Following my usual routine, I let myself stumble backward from the impact, fighting against every instinct screaming at me to plant my feet and stand my ground. Strong arms wrap around my waist to keep me from falling, leaving his money pouch open and exposed to lowlifes like me. I grab hold of the front of his shirt, acting as if I did so as a reflex to keep my balance. Really, I just needed a reason to have my hands so close to his body without looking suspicious. The starving boys from Loot don't feel like this. The thought dissolves when I reach my hand into the pouch at his hip, my fingers deducing that there are at least 20 shillings casually hanging from this man's belt. He must be very confident in his abilities to walk around Loot with so much, well, loot. I'm tempted to rip off the pouch and run, knowing full well he'd catch me in about 3 long strides. But, not knowing when I'll quite literally run into an opportunity like this again, I refuse to leave without at least half of what's in his bag. But he'll feel the weight difference if I take half. My mind is reeling. Then distract him. With all this plotting happening within a matter of moments, I quickly and quietly clutch half the coins in my fist before carefully pulling my hand out of the pouch as I steady myself against him. Then, I slowly tear my gaze from his partially exposed chest, where the edge of a dark tattoo peeks out behind the folds of his shirt. My eyes finally meet his. It's like looking into a storm. His eyes are the color of thunderclouds settling over Ilya, of smoke puffing from the chimneys overhead, of the stolen silver coins clenched in my fist. His black, long lashes are in total contrast with his steely gray eyes, now sweeping across my face. Shock raises his dark eyebrows, tightens his sharp jaw, emphasizes his strong cheekbones. We stand there, staring at each other. I'm suddenly acutely aware of every place he's touching me. His strong arms are still wrapped around my waist and half holding me up, though his gaze feels like a caress in and of itself. I clear my throat as I remove my fisted hand from his shirt, revealing crumpled, fine fabric beneath, before moving to step out of his hold. His lips twitch, allowing me to glimpse a dimple on his right cheek. He slowly slides his arms from my waist, releasing me as his hands catch on the rough bottom of my vest. Calluses. He's a fighter. Not that I need to be a psychic to figure that out, seeing as his physique makes that fact obvious. With the thought of him being a trained fighter and double my size in mind, I nonchalantly pull my hands behind me to hide the evidence of my crime. The coins slide silently into my back pocket as I take a deep breath, trying to pull myself together.
Do you always fall into the arms of handsome strangers, or is this a new thing for you?
His question displays that dimple again when a grin settles on his face, revealing white, straight teeth. No, only the cocky ones. I smile coolly while he looks at me like I'm a puzzle he's trying to decipher, amusement playing all over his face. Distract him. He chuckles and raises a hand through his ebony hair, only managing to make the waves messier. Gray eyes search mine as he says,
Well, looks like I've made quite the first impression then.
Yes, I say slowly, though I still haven't decided if it was a good or bad one yet. Keep his mind off the money and his focus on you. He shrugs, shoving his hands into his pockets, the perfect picture of cool indifference.
I caught you, didn't I?
Now it's my turn to laugh. He cocks his head slightly to the side as he peers down at me, the corner of his mouth tilted up. Leaning in, he adds,
Maybe you should consider that detail before you decide, darling. Plagues. A pretty boy with pretty words.
Dangerous. His smoky eyes sweep across my face, once again looking at me as though I'm an intriguing riddle. I refuse to fidget under his gaze as I take a step backwards towards the busy street. I'll keep it under consideration, darling. I draw out the last word, mimicking him with a grin. His smile widens, displaying dimples on both of his cheeks. I force myself to ignore them as I add, And thank you for saving me from eating cobblestone. I seem to be cursed with clumsiness.
Well, your clumsiness found me, so I'd hardly call it a curse,
he says simply, now leaning against the wall, hands in pockets. I smile, unable to suppress the eye roll that accompanies it. I glimpse his grin one last time before spinning on my heel and walking back onto Loot Alley, disappearing into the crowd. My mind is reeling, replaying the observations I made of him as I make my way down Loot. The scars splattering his arms and the raw knuckles from a recent fight intrigued me the most, and it's almost a shame I won't discover the story that accompanies them. The thought of an offensive elite wearing scars almost brings a smile to my lips. Proof of weakness. I grab the coins in my back pocket, letting them clink in my palm with a triumphant smile. I doubt he'll be missing these.